Okay, just open it up with, first of all, congratulations to Frankie Luvu, right, NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Great honor, obviously very well deserved. Had a monster game, but as we said when we congratulated him in our team meeting this morning, that was the result of the whole defense really having a monster game, playing really good defense. Frankie was the benefactor of that in many ways, but he had individually an outstanding performance. Honor well deserved. So I'll open it up from there.
What do you, as you prepare for the Colts, what do you see that they do well on all three phases that you guys are going to be preparing?
Yeah, I think on offense, this team, they've been consistent. They've been consistent in scoring points, gaining yards. Good. They run a bunch of no huddle. They run more no huddle plays per game than anybody else. They run more RPOs than anybody else. They score points. They've been productive on offense. Shane Steichen's done a great job. They've, spread the ball around. On defense, Gus Bradley, know him well, and he's an excellent coach. They've had to, manage a lot of moving parts. Done a good job. Certainly, they run to the ball better than anybody. They mix up their coverages. He's pressuring more than he's pressured in the past. Very disruptive players. They take the ball away extremely well. When you look at their play, Kenny and Shaq and Zaire and the whole crew, a lot of strip sacks, so they take the ball away, do that very well. And then on special teams, they're fast on special teams. They really cover well. So good football team.
Frank, I think you said earlier this year when you were in Indy, no bitterness over being fired there. What emotions did you leave there with?
Positive emotions. There's always a disappointment about moving on, just like anybody who moves on in a job, but a lot of great relationships. But for me, this is very common right in this league. I've been in this league 30 years. Players and coaches, you move on. You have a new family. You love the people you just left. You respect them. You move on, and you're focused to the next chapter in your life and your career. And so that's the position we're at, and I'm excited about that and excited about the game.
What did you learn from that experience of going through that last year? And did that have anything to do with you giving up the play calling duties early this year?
I'm not going to go back to when I got here, I kind of went over answered all the questions about what you learn. I think as coaches and players, we're always learning all the time. So I don't want to really rehash that. Focused really about this season, this team, really focus more on our players. I don't want to, you guys know how it is. I don't want to stand up here and make this a personal thing. Because it's not. This is the next game. They're all important. I'm interested in our guys and how we're going to prepare this week.
Frank, understanding that, but there is one thing I don't know that you'd had the opportunity to address. Maybe you want to, maybe you don't. But there was a report, or maybe several, that Mr. Irsay kind of foisted a quarterback choice on you last year before the firing. Did that make it difficult, especially given your years at coaching and playing that position?
Yeah, I respect the question, Joe, but I'm not going to address the question. I certainly understand the request. Like I said, I'm focused on this year and looking forward to tomorrow's practice. We had a really good practice today, a lot of energy, running around hard. All three phases were good and sharp today, and we need to repeat that tomorrow.
Frank, I'm sorry, just one last thing. Has your experience as a player helped you compartmentalize some of those emotions maybe when they do get a little?
It really has. And all the years in this business as a player and as a coach, like I said, I've been with a lot of different teams and players and coaches, and so there's a lot of transition in this business. And you talk to probably 50% of the guys and coaches in the locker room, we've all had this experience. So you compartmentalize it, you move on, you're focused on the next game.
Frank, with that said, with all that transitioning, you were basically Shane's boss in San Diego as the offensive coordinator and him being a quality control coach. You're getting to face him. We've seen how much pride you've taken in Thomas Brown. How cool is it to kind of see somebody from your tree, essentially, on Sunday?
Shane's a phenomenal coach, and by the way, and you guys know, and a great human being, a great person. I think back in San Diego when I was there as the offensive coordinator, it was me and Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen sitting in those meetings, game planning, you know, the past game and a lot of stuff. So obviously that was a pretty dynamic group. You could tell right away, both of those guys. I knew Nick right away, and same thing with Shane. They're those super bright, super brilliant football minds, hard workers, understand every aspect of the game. And, you know, Shane's success is no surprise. I mean, he's been successful at every stop. Everywhere he's been, he's made a big impact. So I'm super happy for Shane.
Jonathan Mingo had his best game in terms of yards this past Sunday. What have you been seeing from him as he develops?
More confidence. You know, he's got more confidence. You know, more making. You know, this was good. This was a good game from this last game. You know, making some plays, getting that deep ball. You know, he's continued to be an impact player in the run game. It's very important. You know, as far as blocking force, he doesn't shy away from that. You know, fewer and fewer mental errors. You know, we've done some no huddle. He's done well at that. So he's continuing to develop at a good pace.
Frank Bryce gets his first win this past week, but what do you know, he still got sacked quite a few times, and what do you guys got to do to kind of cut down on the pressures, the sacks, and, you know, if you can do that, do you feel like his ceiling goes further up?
I absolutely think his ceiling goes further up, and we have to get that cleaned up. And we did, you know, there were, and I'm not going to go into the details, but there were one or two little minor things, and coming from different, you know, perspectives, you know, from O-line play, from running backs, quarterback, play calls, the whole thing, how it all goes together, situational football. We can continue to learn and get better from that. I believe we will. You know, that was too many sacks. I mean, that's just unacceptable. So, you know, we'll focus on doing a better job this week.
How much of it does he need to get rid of the ball quicker too, or is it not on him? Is it not his?
You know, I can honestly say that you know, it felt like in the game there was one or two. I felt like, get that out. But then as I watched the film, there was nowhere to get it out. The one or two times that I thought there, it didn't look like there was anywhere to get it out to. So, you know, we collectively have to do a better job of giving him outlets, you know, when it's not there down the field. And so that it's all part of it. Like I said, there's no one thing. When you get sacked 6 times, it's, you know, maybe one of it's one thing. You got one reason. You got 4 different reasons in 6 sacks. So we got to get those cleaned up.
Following up on that, with the addition of Austin, and, you know, you guys have had to blend offensive linemen throughout the season. Is that something that some stability in that position group could also maybe alleviate?
Stability always helps, but every team's dealing with it, right? I mean, I think James Campen and Cougs do a good job of, you know, rotating those guys through. It's a tight-knit room. Room takes a lot of pride in its work. So, you know, a little bit of heat after last week with all those sacks that we mentioned. Not all on the O-line. We'll be better this week. And, you know, I think we're continuing to learn and going to get better. I'm excited about the guys and the trajectory we're on, but we definitely have to be better.
Quite a few DNPs on the injury report. I think Chark didn't practice, Houston didn't practice. Any of those present any particular concern for this week?
You know, no, DJ's elbow, you know, I mean, we'll just see. I mean, I'm optimistic, but, you know, we have to take that day by day. You know, Chairless, same thing. I mean, hopefully we'll take that day to day. We had a couple of illnesses, you know, come up that, you know, just kind of I'm probably expecting viral things that should be okay in a day. So, and then 1 or 2 guys resting.
Frank, I would guess you haven't had much time in the fall to kind of unwind or whatever, and you had that opportunity last year. Did you take some time away before you sort of started prepping for your next job?
Absolutely. You know, use the time to kind of refresh and, you know, no doubt that was part of it. Spend time with family, just relax personally. And that's why I felt like I got here with a lot of energy, a lot to prove, and I'm excited.
Frank, I know Gus has been around and done a lot of the same things in Seattle and Jacksonville, but what's the upside and the downside to coaching offense against a guy that you know, practiced with and worked with as a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, Gus and I had a lot of conversations. You know, we got very close in the 1 year we worked together. Sat in his office for many, many hours talking football off season, during the season. And there's a few guys I respect more than Gus Bradley. He's a great football coach and a great man. So I think Gus has continued to reinvent himself. You know, went from playing all that Seattle 3, which they still play, but they've done so many variations off that, playing more quarters, and, you know, so he's mixing it up. You know, their pressure package that they're running right now is very sophisticated. They have some very good pressures that they're running. So it's kind of fun, you know, that we would sit there and, you know, challenge each other, you know, about, you know, going up against each other every day in practice. So, you know, no conversations this week, though. You know, I think it's like one of those things, just best to leave it alone until after the game, but a lot of respect for Gus.
Does that give you maybe a insider's knowledge? I mean, when players come from one team to another, it's snitches get stitches, so.
Yeah,
What do you get here?
he's got all the inside now, because he knows everything I think, too, you know what I mean, that we think here. So, you know, you share, that's the way you do it. I mean, and that's a cool thing about this league, you know, when players and coaches shift team to team, you take some of that with you everywhere you go. I think when it comes to the actual game, I don't think it's as big of an impact as everybody thinks it might be. I think it's a little bit of a factor, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to do what we do, and it comes down to who executes better.
Brian, you always talk about, and I think a lot of coaches do, about being the same guy every day. How does that dynamic kind of change coming off a win versus coming off a loss?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, when we watched the film yesterday as a team, you know, the way our procedure works, you know, come in there, go through our game review, and then, you know, I'm going to show tape for 30 or 45 minutes, and we're going to correct every mistake. We're going to show the good things too. So we're just going to let the tape talk, and we're going to be very, very demanding. We're going to be very critical about, because our mission is how are we going to get better today when we watch this tape as coaches and players. So, you know, really when that tape is over, there should be a little bit of an attitude. Did we win or did we lose that game? I don't know. When you go over the tape, it feels the same. Maybe when you win, there's a few more good plays, but you're correcting the bad plays just as hard as you do in a loss.
Right. You talked to Scott yesterday, and you know, deadline came and went, no movement. Was anything close in your mind?
I think Scott had, you know, so I was in working and game planning, and Scott was, I know, busy. He came in once or twice, said he had some conversations, you know, but they were brief. They were brief with me. I still haven't sat down, you know, he came down at the end, and I know nothing materialized. As I've told you guys before, I often feel like going through this trade deadline thing, there's always a lot of chatter, but as a head coach and being a coach around this league, 90-some% of the time, nothing ever materializes, so I just stay focused on the next opponent.
You're probably okay that Brian Burns is still here, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I am really, really happy that Brian Burns is still here. That guy, again, I can't say enough about him. He's our leader. He's a great player. He's elite in every way. Super glad that, I mean, we always knew we wanted him here, so glad about that.
You mentioned earlier that it's common for players and even coaches to face their former team, and we always hear that, oh, it's another game, and then after the game, we see that it means a little bit more. Maybe somebody's giving a game ball, maybe we hear a little trash talk. I mean, are you feed? Is it the politically correct thing to say? And then after the game, we learned that it might have had a little bit more.
No, in this particular case, yeah, it always means a little bit more, but it's not, for me, it's not more. For some people, when that happens, it means more in a vengeful way. I don't look at it like that. I've never looked at it, you know, motivated, yes. Highly motivated, yes. But it's more, yeah, it's just a different perspective. It's a different perspective, but it's both can be true. It's just another game, but it also, you know, you understand it's a different dynamic. I think both of those things can be true.
Frank, how did Von Bell look today, and is there any update on JC?
You know, Von was limited in practice. You know, we'll see how he responds today. You know, obviously didn't do everything today, so we'll see how he responds tonight. Maybe he can do more tomorrow, and then we'll just take, or, you know, that's going to be, my guess is that's going to be right up to game time with Von. I really think it's going to be right up to game time. I think it'll be close. We'd love to get him up if we can, but we just don't know. We got to see how he progresses over the next couple of days. And you ask about JC. Yeah, JC making great progress. Still probably a week or two away.
Last question. You know Jonathan Taylor's, you know, talent as much as anybody. How much do you go into the defensive meetings and kind of help with scouting, advanced scouting of this team?
Just a little bit. You know, I mean, I sat down with EJ last night, and, you know, we kind of talked through some things, and I gave my perspective on a few things. But again, I go back to, you know, I talked about JT a lot, you know. Certainly, I know he's a big part of, he's an amazing player. And he's just getting going. And I've seen what that can look like when he gets going. So obviously a big mission for us is to, you know, contain him. You know, so you talk a little bit about, you know, how you might do that. But I think EJ and the defensive staff, you know, have come up with a good plan. You know, they're running the ball. They're very good up front. You know, their offensive line's very good. I think they're playing very well. And JT's a special back. So it's fun. If I'm, you know, as a defensive player, this is what you want. You want to go up against the best. And, you know, you want to be successful against the best. We have a chance as a team and as a defense to go up against an offense that has really kind of doing something that, you know, some other offenses aren't doing. And the points are scoring and the productivity they've had, so it'll be a good challenge for us.
Thank you. Thanks, Coach. All right, locker room.